A couple months ago, this 2000 Yamaha YZ125 two-stroke popped up on Facebook Marketplace for $1,000. The ad stated it was already partially torn down and includes a new cylinder. I didn't ask too many questions and offered the seller $800, to which he agreed, and I hopped in my truck and drove up to Big Sky. When I arrived, I met a really nice 15-year-old kid who was familiar with my videos and agreed to let me set up the camera. Here is just a little bit of our interaction before I bring this bike back home.
Okay, and then I got a new cylinder for it.
And you said those heads look different?
Yeah.
From what you can tell? Okay. Is there anything you're aware that's missing?
I think you need to do a new head. And also, these things right here, so that slide in there, don't fit in that new cylinder.
I'd be willing to bet the cylinder that was on it is from a different year YZ. I'll have to do some research to figure that out, because if the whole exhaust valve is different too.
Yeah, I don't believe there's anything missing.
Did you ever run the VIN on this? Or you said you have the title, it says it's a 2000?
Yeah, it does.
That's interesting. It doesn't at all seem like a bad bike, but a little bit of Frankensteining has been done, so I gotta figure out.
But it ran really well, was the weird thing. Like, besides the exhaust leak, it ran well.
Alrighty, well yeah, if you're good with 800, I'll take it off your hands.
Do you play the hockey leagues?
Yeah.
Yeah, my buddy Scott plays in it, and he was like, I think I talked to him the other
Oh,
day.
really?
And he said, you should sell that YZ.
Oh, yeah. Does he have like a gray goatee?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know who that is. Cool.
Yeah. I'll grab that title. It's
Cool.
Here's 800. Sweet, thank you.
I'll do some digging.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so weird. They're running this like weird spacer in there to make it work, and it was just like...
It's pretty impressive to make it work at all with a completely different pipe and head design like that.
Yeah, it was kind of shocked.
I loaded up the YZ125 in my truck, along with a pretty significant bundle of parts he provided, and I drove it back home, where it was neglected in my shed for a couple of months while I wrapped up other projects. But now, it is finally time to get this old two-stroke running once again. So here it is. Let's go over what I know about this thing right now and what I don't. So essentially, this bike was running with a female style cylinder and a female style header. They were simply butted up against one another using exhaust springs and some sort of weird spacer, as the seller described to me. So honestly, impressive Frankensteining for it to work at all, but to no surprise, he said the exhaust leak was absolutely terrible. He did include a brand new Athena cylinder, which is the male style cylinder that should correspond to this year YZ125. That said, the Athena cylinder head has a different design than OEM, and the power valve components that came with the OEM cylinder that was being run from we don't know what year do not match that of the Athena cylinder. Along with that Athena cylinder, he included a brand new complete FMF exhaust system and a complete set of white plastics. So let's do a little digging to see if we can figure out what the cylinder on this bike actually is and confirm the bottom end is from a 2000 before we start making decisions. For starters, let's confirm the bike is actually a 2000. Now I do have the title with the corresponding VIN number that states it's a 2000, but it is always worth confirming in odd situations like this. I grabbed the VIN and put it into an online VIN lookup tool, and sure enough, it is a year 2000 chassis. Next, I need to confirm whether the exhaust is wrong or the cylinder is wrong given the year. I headed over to the OEM part lookup tool on the Rocky Mountain ATVMC website and plugged in a 2000 YZ125. Sure enough, the OEM cylinder on hand was incorrect. I started perusing parts diagrams from older YZ125s and found that this cylinder appears to correspond with the 96 to 98 YZ125. I would like to note that Rocky Mountain ATVMC is where I source the vast majority of parts for every project you see on this channel, and I do have an affiliate link with them in the description. Using this link provides me with a commission on your purchases at no cost to you. Along with buying parts here, I've been rocking the MSR NXT gear, which is comfortable, durable, and very affordable. Along with that, Rocky Mountain just released a toolbox that costs $380 to $410 depending on the style you choose, and they even offer custom graphics for that factory look. It is an incredibly well thought out toolbox and includes literally every tool I can think of to do any bike work I would want to do out in the wild. It costs less than half the price of its competition, and I actually made a similar toolbox last year, and it cost me more than this Tusk toolbox to set up and is not quite as good. So if you do not have a travel toolbox, you need a starter toolbox in your shop, or someone you know needs an incredible Christmas present, check out this toolbox or anything else on the Rocky Mountain website. Thanks to Rocky Mountain for the continued support, and let's continue with the YZ125. Now, just to be 100% sure that the bottom end was correct and this bike never saw a total engine swap, I started digging into the serial number on the engine cases. While I was Googling things, I realized I have a pretty darn resourceful and knowledgeable group of people who follow me. So I posted a couple Instagram stories asking my followers to provide case numbers and years for their YZ125 bottom ends, as well as part numbers stamped on the cylinders. One follower ended up sending me this chart he found on Thumper Talk, which indeed confirmed my bottom end is from a 2000 and the cylinder was from a 1996 model. All of this ultimately leaves me with two options. I could simply get a header from a 1996 and bolt on that 96 cylinder, although a new header for a 96 is nearly $300 and I have a beautiful new exhaust system for a 2000. Plus, I think it's a better outcome for the parts to match the year they are supposed to, rather than leave any future owner dealing with the same mess I'm dealing with right now. This leads us to option 2, which is to acquire the necessary parts to reassemble this bike using the new Athena cylinder. This would require a new cylinder head, just as the seller told me, since the Athena cylinder has a different design than OEM. Along with the head, I would need new power valve components, since the 96 to 98, which was being used, and the 99 to 04 are different. Now, Athena offers a complete bolt-on cylinder kit with all of the necessary gaskets and seals, the correct head, a piston, and cylinder. It is good peace of mind to do a complete fresh top end while replacing these parts. Thankfully, I've got a good relationship with the crew over at Athena, and they were able to send me those parts minus the cylinder since I already have that Athena cylinder on hand. Big thanks to Athena with their help on this project. While I patiently wait to receive those new parts, let's take a look at the rest of this bike and see what else it might need. Similar to the YZ250 I recently brought back to life, I do not intend for this to be a full build. I've already done a steel-framed YZ125 in the past, and my next build is already planned. I had my dad pick up a 1988 Honda CR500 by popular request from you guys down in Arizona, and I will be picking that thing up at Christmas time, bringing it back to Montana, and starting on that build. So that said, let's take a deeper look at this thing and see if it needs anything else to be a safe, reliable, and fun bike to ride. Upon inspection, I found the following issues. The rear brake bolt is incorrect, and these YZs are known to have brake bolts back out, so the cotter pin that is supposed to go on the back is somewhat important. The carb is sealed by red RTV, which is not the greatest sign, and the airbox was covered with duct tape, which when removed revealed a very dirty air boot, so that carb will be coming apart and getting a full clean to be sure the engine doesn't ingest any dirt. There is an odd feeling aftermarket clutch lever. The grips are decent, but I think new grips go a really long way for bike feel. The clutch cable was nearly worn through by the exhaust, and the rear axle is missing a washer, and one of the swing arm spacers is missing and was replaced with a large washer. Additionally, the mud flap is missing, as are the radiator louvers. I was able to source all of these parts from Rocky Mountain, aside from the louvers and the swing arm spacer. The louvers were available, but $55 each, so I bought used ones on eBay for around $15 each, and the swing arm spacer is unfortunately unavailable. The washer will have to do for the time being. Functionally, it should work just fine, but it will make reinstalling the rear axle each time a little bit more tedious, as I would have to realign that washer rather than the spacer already being there. My new parts arrived from both Rocky Mountain ATVMC and Athena on the same day, and I was ready to get this bike up and running. The crusty carburetor still needed to be removed in order to take care of that nasty red RTV sealing the bowl, along with a cleaning and inspection. The subframe and air boot needed to come off as well to clean all of that dirt out of the boot. With each of these removed, I took advantage of the extra space and began with the top end installation. I removed the old piston and note the rag in the crankcase to prevent the possibility of dropping a circlip into the bottom end. I unpacked my brand new Athena piston, and there's a subtle difference to show between OEM and Athena. Athena offers two styles of piston and cylinder head. The flat top, which you see here, as well as an OEM style. I asked Athena about the benefits of this flat top design, and they informed me that this design shows dyno numbers of 36 as opposed to 35 horsepower. That is a 3% increase, and every pony counts on a 125. I installed the new power valve component into the Athena cylinder, cleaned up the cover using prime wheels on the Dremel, and the final step was to install the new cylinder studs. I apply a bit of anti-seize as I have seen these rust in cylinders before, and then tightened them using the double nut method. You tighten 2 nuts onto each other, which allows you to use the top nut as a bolt head essentially. With all of those installed, I was ready to begin top-end installation. First was the base gasket replacement, and then of course I utilized a rag in the crankcase one more time while installing the piston. I used plenty of 2-stroke oil so the top end is lubricated for the first start, and I finessed the circlip into place using my fingers and a flat blade screwdriver. Note, I did rotate the clip once it was installed so it was perfectly vertical, but didn't get that on camera. Circlips should not be installed horizontally, as it is actually possible for the RPM of the engine to compress the clip and cause it to fly out. The new Athena cylinder slid on with ease, and I bolted it down, tightening the nuts in a crisscross pattern, torquing the easily accessible ones, and giving a couple ugga-duggas to the other 2. With the cylinder O-rings installed using a small amount of grease, the new Athena cylinder head bolted right on. Those nuts were also torqued in a 2-stage crisscross pattern. Finally came the power valve arm and then its respective cover, and the appropriate cylinder for this YZ125 was finally installed. Mystery over and bike de-Frankensteined one step at a time, I then moved on to replacing the worn-out clutch cable. When I removed the old lever, I realized it was using a totally unique clutch perch and was different size than OEM. I ordered a new clutch perch from Rocky Mount as well. But I was still able to get the new cable routed and removed the front fender and number plate while I was at it. I then installed and torqued the engine hangers, and with this year YZ, the CDI box actually mounts to them as well, which is fairly unique compared to most bikes. The correct spark plug for this bike is a BR9EG, but I did not have one on hand, and after reading some forums, found this BR8ES should be okay, but I will likely replace it in the future. I could finally install the radiators along with those eBay louvers, which fit nicely and saved me almost $100 from buying brand new. For a project like this, I'm going for function, not beauty or perfection. I finally cleaned the dirt out of the air boot and then moved on to the carburetor. The bowl did not have a gasket at all and was purely relying on red RTV. I scrubbed it in the sink, replaced the O-ring on the bowl bolt, and inspected the jets, which was a good thing as you can see the clogged pilot compared to a new one. I cleaned out the carb and reassembled it using the appropriate gasket, and check out the old slide bolts compared to a new one. The slide cover also had sealant instead of a gasket, so that was replaced and the carb was ready for reinstallation. After the carb comes the boot and subframe, and I could finally install this beautiful new FMF pipe. Unlike the 96 cylinder, this pipe slips nicely over the flange on the new Athena cylinder, and the exhaust mounted up with no hiccups at all, completed by the Shorty silencer. By now, I was jonesing to hear the bike run for the first time, so I installed the fuel tank and then added fuel mixed at 32:1 with Yamalube, along with coolant to the radiators. Alright, I'm obviously nowhere near complete here, but I should be at the minimum viable point for a first start, and I've been dying to hear this thing run, so we're gonna see if she fires up, see if she runs, and then we'll keep on plucking away to finish this project off. That Shorty's got such a cackle to it. I forget how mean Yamahas sound with a Shorty. Alright, I just had to set the idle real quick. That's purring. Okay, now we resume progress. Absolutely hyped to hear this thing run for the first time. There were just a handful of things left to do. First, I wanted to replace this incorrect rear brake bolt and add the missing spring. Whoever did this was actually very creative, as it looks like it was using the correct bolt but broken and drilled all the way through. The appropriate bolt goes through the frame and has a cotter pin on the back. With the rear brake issues fixed, I added the missing washer for the rear axle and then replaced the grips. Someone had left the mounts for BarkBusters inside the handlebars, along with a piece sticking out. So I removed those, and I'm sure the bars will feel a little more natural at this width, and I installed some brand new ODI lock-ons. Note, for the throttle side, I like to add a little bit of oil to the handlebar, which helps with a smooth throttle operation. A new Tusk air filter coated in no-toil filter oil will ensure this bike is breathing clean, and then I wanted to remove any graphics on the bike just for a clean, naked look. The glue residue came off easily using DecalWorks Step 1 from their graphic application kit, and then to start it for plastics, I moved to the fork guards. These forks are running neoprene seal savers, which I've never really been a fan of. I don't think they help, and honestly, they just end up holding dirt on the fork legs. I cut those off with a razor blade, replaced the fork guards with the fresh white ones the seller gave to me, and then proceeded with the rest of the plastics installation. I really like the look of the all white, and honestly, I like the older style rather than the restyled front end for this bike too. The final hiccup I ran into was with the seat. I could not get the hook to grab onto the subframe, and upon inspection it became clear the seat had not been installed properly in ages and was wearing into the top of the subframe. I gave the seat some quick blowtorch action to melt the plastic into the appropriate position, and then was able to correctly install it. Lastly, for the plastics were the radiator shrouds, which bolted right on, and then I had one final thing to install on the bike: these frame and engine guards from Prime MX. Nick left me this awesome note, and I will always be proud to support this company, and so should you. Using the heat gun, I carefully stuck those guards in place, which not only look good, but protect the bike and add a little extra grip. For one nice finishing touch, I put the Camstrong sticker on the rear fender as a reminder to give 100% in everything you do, and a nice clean Prime sticker on the front plate. So while I realize this still isn't the most beautiful bike and it's a little rough around the edges, the thing is, it is now reliable once again and ready to ride. I really wanted to showcase this project just like this because this is how I started working on bikes. There's a time and place for a perfection, all-out build like the CR250 I did, but there's also a time and place for a project like this. This was a 2000 YZ125 that may not have seen dirt again if I didn't get my hands on it and take care of what needed to be done. And I think that's important. Every bike project doesn't have to be perfect. There are always going to be varying levels of what you can do in a build or a project. For this specific YZ125, my goal was just to get it running again and make sure that it's ready to ride. I still need a clutch perch to finish this thing off, but I'll plan on getting it on dirt sometime in 2025 before it finds a new home. All this said, I'm actually driving down to Arizona tomorrow to spend Christmas with my family. I hope all of you have a wonderful Christmas. I've got some merch available on my website. You can use my Rocky Mountain link below. You can find anything you need there related to parts, tools, and gear, as I mentioned earlier, and I do earn commission on that link if you use it, which helps support the channel and videos and projects like this. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a very Merry Christmas. This will be the last video on my YouTube channel for 2024. What an absolutely unbelievable year it has been. Thank you guys for everything. Thank you for tuning into these videos. I'll see you guys in the new year, and I'll leave you with the sweet cackle of a YZ125.